Well, hello again, and welcome to On It Not In It interview series. I am host Todd Eppert, and today I'm joined by Ryan Ray, who is the co-owner and operations leader at Rockwerk Corporation, and also the co-owner of Bubba Rock Meat Company and Team Ray Technologies. Man, Ryan, you have a lot going on. So why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do?
Hi, Todd. Yes, it's definitely a handful. There's no doubt about it. So I'm Ryan Ray, born and bred in Ohio, chemical engineering degree. I actually did go to St. Louis for one of my degrees, but I went to the University of Findlay, played football there, got environmental degree there, and got into, just to kind of give you an overview of my background and history, started out working in soybean plants and kind of moved up the chain as an engineer to a manager, wanted to make more money, went into the automotive business. During that time frame, I taught myself how to make software so I could assist my job tasks as a manager. I kind of moved up as a production manager and, did some really neat things, broke some records, used my engineering abilities. And my brother, who's 4 years younger than me, he kind of followed really the same path. He went to the University of Findlay also. He went to the University of Toledo to get his chemical engineering degree. And he was kind of tagging along as an intern when I was at the soybean plant. And then when I made the move into automotive, he was kind of at the soybean plant by himself, and he actually did it. He was stuck. He had to draw. And it's one of the things we learned how to do is 3D CAD. And so we've done so many different things, but the first skill set we learned out of college, even though we were chemical engineers, was more mechanical 3D designing of large piping, construction, basically for a bean plant, duct work and understanding how gravity feed duct work works and things like that. So he got to make a 5-story building where he drew every single piece and component. And I moved on into automotive and gotten into injection molding, which was something that was brand new for me, but kind of resonated with my chemical engineering background. And I picked it up pretty quick and became really good at that, and moved up the ladder into a management position again. And at that point, Chris moved into the automotive, into the same plant as me. And we kind of worked together, and I became a manager, and he worked for me for a while. And, one of the things we saw there just wasn't, we wanted to do some things with SCADA, and that was right at the kind of the beginning edge of SCADA for automotive, tier 1 automotive plants, at least. We learned a lot when we were in the food processing of different electric controls. That's the one thing we both kind of gravitated towards, was PLCs and electrical controls. And then we want to take it to the next step with SCADA systems, and then ultimately to databases and software that's connected right to the machines. So we tried to hire some else. When you're working in a company, you're so buried with paperwork and just day-to-day meetings. And actually, I was getting shipped to Mexico. Even when I was a manager, they would ship me to Mexico to work on plastic issues where they couldn't mold parts and things because of my technical skills. So you weren't really getting to work on some of the improvements and things that we want to do. So we kind of put the groundworks of putting a business together in 2004, 2005, and just, made the jump and the plunge, and kind of did everything and anything at first. And it's kind of started out as Team Ray Technologies in 2005. And it's amazing how many different things we did. We still were doing some CAD work, but Chris really focused and has been pretty steady just doing automation and controls, PLC programming, robotics, industrial cameras, controls design, that type of stuff. And this is one of the best there is for that type of work. And I actually did some injection molding engineering, but I mostly was doing custom software at the time. And we did a project for Sandusky County where we worked with them and developed this courthouse system that they're still using today. But our main niche is what we did was learn how to interface with machines. And that's what we're experts at, is being able to seamlessly communicate with a computer to any type of machinery based on, it doesn't, any type of controller or electrical systems. We kind of figured out a way to talk with the machine, pull data from the machine, right to the machine. And that's kind of what Rockwerk Corp is today. And it was spun off in 2011 as an extension of Team Ray Technologies, and it focused on the software products and services. And we still had a lot of the custom stuff we were doing. We did automobile accounting systems. We did a little bit of everything, but we started shrinking things down to where now, today it's much smaller footprint of what we focus on, which has been nice. So Team Ray Technologies has expanded a little bit. They're going into machine building, which there's a whole story during COVID, which kind of transformed what we do. But we now have a shop, and we're actually, instead of just doing the software, the PLC programming, we actually have mechanical engineers on staff who do the 3D modeling. And we also, with Rockwerk Corp is pretty much is just an extension of a lot of the equipment Team Ray makes. We connect to the equipment, and then we take it a step further to a relational database. And then we have MES, manufacturing execution system, track and trace systems. And then we also provide like testing devices that are a little more complex in what you'd like to program in a PLC. We can make software programs on a computer that connect directly and just becomes an extension of the PLC, which is a lot of the same technology we're using to make the other software systems. And we've just perfected that. And then it becomes a mission critical asset based off the way that we program and set up the devices it runs on. So that's kind of it in a nutshell. There's lots of stuff in between. I'm sure you have some more. I'd like to try to get to some of your other questions. So.
Yeah, no, that's a great background. And you just shared a lot of what small business is all about, right? First of all, you mentioned your brother's involved in the business,
Yep.
Team Ray, that's you and your brother, obviously. But you also talked about the fact that you've been driven into different areas by seeing a need, seeing a gap that maybe you could fill. You started in one area, and then you just kind of meandered into a bunch of different other places because of the technology and the capabilities you were able to develop, as well as the challenges that you saw out there. And so, I believe that every small business is started by someone who sees a problem and then has a solution to solve for it. And that's what you've done, Ryan. So congratulations on that, man. That is a great story. Thanks for sharing it. So I think you already mentioned this, but I want to ask this. What inspired you to start your own business? Was it that big gap that you saw, or was there something else going on?
There was two or three things, and specific things. One was we were trying to find people to make us a SCADA system. We hired someone in, and this is when I was a manager. Chris was an engineer. We had a department. We were doing some really cool things within the department, but we wanted to take it to another level. Actually, Chris made some of the first. It's funny because we've kind of switched roles a little bit. He was more on the software. I was doing PLC program. Now it's completely switched. But so that's one of the main things is having a little background in both allows you to be able to do the type of stuff we do. But the first thing is we hired a company and $150 an hour. And this is back in 2003, 2004. So significant rate. And it just, here we give them a scope of work. We want this and that. And they just flat out really couldn't make anything happen. They worked on it for months, huge bill. And at the end of the day, you had something that wasn't very useful on the floor. And then Chris was able to develop something that was just simple hourly counts. Well, first what he did is he took his 3D modeling skills and made an assembly line where you could see everything moving. Every component, every cylinder, it looked like as if it was running. It looks so cool. But at the end of the day, there wasn't much. You could look at the machine and get the same information. He made this little thing with just hourly counts. And that nobody was looking at the 3D model once that was set up. And it was just a simple way to manage your production. And we're just, we're like, God, we could do, if we could focus on this and not have to do all these meetings and drug into so much riffraff, day-to-day stuff. I was like, we could definitely beat what this other company provided for us and take it to a whole nother level. So that was the one thing. And the second thing was just the compensation and stuff. It was kind of goofy. Like I was in a job where I was getting overtime, and then I got promoted, and I ended up making like a significant amount less because they said they couldn't move my salary up because of a certain range, but I wasn't going to get overtime anymore. And I had three babies I had to take care of. So just trying to break the insane rules that were going to prevent your pay from being where it should be. So those were the two main things.
Okay. Yeah. So a need in the world, and looking at the solution and saying, man, I think I could do it better. And I'm paying that guy $150 an hour. That's the first thing you mentioned. And then the other thing you mentioned is the fact that sometimes in our corporate careers, we get promoted, but we actually make less because we become a manager. We're not making overtime anymore. And it's that we get struggles, right? And so sounds to me like you made a couple decisions. One was, you wanted a little more freedom. You keep talking about these meetings that were in the way. You wanted a little more freedom and flexibility in your time, and then to be doing things that were really adding value most of the time, instead of just being in meetings and kind of managing the paperwork of the day to day, and then making some better money. So all good reasons. So I think that'll resonate with a lot of folks that hear this podcast. The one thing that may not resonate, that you may need to explain, just tell us what SCADA means, because I'm an engineer by degree, and I've done PLC programming, and I don't even know what SCADA is, or maybe I forgot.
I'm sorry. It's a supervisory control and data acquisition is the terminology. And all it really means is it's like a graphical interface that will represent your machine's control system, to where you can have KPIs, key performance indicators, and different calculations, values, real time. You can get graphs. There's components called OEE, which we're experts at, overall equipment effectiveness percentages and things like that. So that's all that is it's basically a type of software that connects to your machine. And it's kind of an in-between phase. We actually provide software that's on the whole other, it's called MES, manufacturing execution system. So SCADA is just kind of like our gateway to actually connect to the PLCs, which those are the controllers, process logic controllers, that actually run probably 90% of the machines we work on. We do get some computer based, which we connect through same way or different way, whatever way is available. Several different methods we have. And basically what we've become experts at is this seamless communication from that equipment all the way into a relational database, and then all the way to the cloud now. And so
awesome.
SCADA is kind of like the spot right in between where the machine is, and in between the machine and the database.
Excellent. Yeah. So for our non-technical folks out there that don't know the jargon that we're talking back and forth about, and what are these things? So I really appreciate that. So it's to summarize very simply, it's a way for the manager, supervisor, leader in the business, owner of the business, to understand how effective is their equipment running, and how effective are their people, is what it really sounds like you're sharing there.
It's shop floor management software. And actually we just won an award, a magazine, Manufacturing Insights Technology, Company of the Year for our shop floor software.
Nice. Congratulations.
And we've been in the top 10 since 2017, but this year we got the top nod. So yeah, that's the crux of what we provide. It allows the floor personnel, the managers, the supervisor. We have something for every component: maintenance, engineers, quality, and kind of our new software is kind of set up like that, where we'll have tabs for each position, and it allows them to kind of manage what's going on day to day, provide information to their customers, and then kind of dissect problems and watch and then analyze the results.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you for sharing it with us. And obviously the awards, congratulations on that, and your recognition. That's great. So, all right, let's go back to some basic questions. But can you so you started out in 2004, I think you said maybe five with the first business, Team Ray. What were some of the early challenges that you had to deal with?
Well, it was a scary leap. I had 3 young kids. I was getting a decent salary, but it still wasn't. It was kind of like at the spot where I was just paying the bills, and I was probably even going a little bit behind after I lost my overtime, where I was okay. Once I lost that, I was kind of in limbo. Didn't start out. I worked out of my basement, and so it was a little scary because we didn't have a whole bunch of work lined up. We had some stuff. We had made some deals with potentially doing a courthouse system, but we really didn't know exactly what we were going to be doing. We thought we might be doing some, if you read my business plan and what was in there, what was in that business plan and what we actually did was completely different.
Yeah.
We thought we were going to be doing maybe some more mechanical stuff and things like that. But ultimately what happened is once the people we had worked with previously realized that we were for hire, our automation and controls, and then the software that ties into the equipment, that portion of the business blew through any of the projections we had for our business plan. And it's kind of been the crux of what we've done since. But that portion was one that we didn't, I guess we didn't anticipate the immediate requests that we got from some people. Like we were immediately doing work for Ford Motor Company and getting some nice projects, and that kind of sprung us forward. We had a really good 2007. And then, went through the 2008, 2009 and sprung back up in 2011, kind of probably like a lot of businesses. But yeah, there was some scary times starting out. Just, I was able to get a loan. I basically went to SBA free schooling. My uncle was like a dean at Terra Tech, and he let me know about this SBA pro. It was great. I was able to go to some classes, and then there was a liaison there who actually helped me set up the business plan and Excel sheets. I'm very thankful, and that was very helpful. And so I was able to take that to a bank, present it, and was able to get a $120,000 starting loan, which Chris was actually still working for another company for a little bit, so we didn't have to pay his salary right off up front. But I started working in the basement, and my house, in fact, it's still on some it's 3 houses ago. I've moved into some different houses since then, but still have this 306 Southwest Street address on some of the material, real old material from ground zero.
That's funny. So some typical concerns like, oh my gosh, I just jumped out of a perfectly paying job. What am I going to do? How am I going to support my family? But then also, I think the bigger one you talked about there was the surprise and how fast you had to scale your business, right? The work coming in, you're like, oh my gosh, I thought I could do this, but now I really have to do this, which is awesome. So how about today? Now that you're almost 20 years into it, what are your biggest challenges today?
Now, the biggest COVID really, we were rolling 2019 going into 2020, both sides of the business. And we were but very heavily in the automotive business. And it was just Team Ray and Rockwerk at that time. And COVID hit, and all of our projects and customers shut down. And we had a whole team of people we had to keep busy with work, or we didn't lay anybody off. But we knew a special butcher that was around the area that we've been kicking around that idea of starting up a butcher shop. So we had the resources and time to put towards it. And so we went to the bank in March, right in the middle of COVID, which it worked out because we had the time to do it. But unfortunately, once the actual construction kicked off in November, December, the prices of lumber and everything blew through. So we had to find all sorts of alternative funding just to get the project through. But once we got it through, it's been great. It's just taken off like a rocket. And then the butcher named Bubba is just phenomenal at what he does. And has really captivated the whole area, won all sorts of awards, best butcher shop, best deli. We won Sandusky County Medium Business of the Year last year, or this year, earlier in the year. So that was a challenge. We kind of transferred it, but there was a lot of financial challenges making all the way through COVID. The software business is just starting to pick back up just this year. And so the other thing we did during that time, and this is what got us into the mechanical stuff, is so you got to be very versatile. I guess that's the key. We started making actual temperature or questionnaires. We made a questionnaire that could get on the cloud. And then we made a device that had a wrist temperature scan sensor. And it had a lot of the technology we use for for manufacturing and connecting to equipment and data collection and track and trace systems. We applied it for fever checks. And so we had a whole system, and we made a whole system, and we were selling them all over the country for a little bit. We didn't, we ended up probably losing money on the venture, but at least kept people busy, and we never had to lay anyone off. And that kind of died. It's been about 1.5 years, 2 years. We were in Texas, and we just had everything perfected, and it just kind of died. And so that's kind of, and now, the thing that's really hurting us this year is the IRS decided to take R&D credits to where now you have to, over 5 years, depreciate over 5 years, and things like that just pop up out of the blue and just knock you upside down from your cash flow standpoint. So that's probably the biggest things, unexpected things that you don't have control of that hit you, that affect your cash flow. That's probably the hardest thing as a small company that we've dealt with several times, but just here recently quite a bit.
Yeah, I think you just made a really, really good point that should be really highlighted in this. And that's, so a lot of folks, I actually teach a class at the University of Cincinnati, and I asked some students a couple of weeks ago, we were talking about small business, some of the struggles in small business. And I asked, so how many of you plan to work for a small business? And they were all like, none of us, right? Because they have this idea that there's all these problems in small business. And what you just said is during probably one of the worst economic situations in our history, at least, a 100-year pandemic, you not only kept all your workers working, but you started a whole completely different business, shifted resources so you could continue to take care of families, pay people's bills, keep people employed, started a whole new business. And now that it'll shift back the other way, and maybe you still it now, but now you have this whole new business created. And in the corporate world, what happened during the pandemic is people just lost their job, right? They got shifted, they got moved, they got sent home to work in their little box office instead of the nice corporate experience they had. And congratulations on that. I think that's a real feather in your cap from the perspective of, you're talking about making pivots in difficult situations, and small businesses are able to pivot much easier than a large business is. And you did that in a number of cases. So well done.
Thank you, Tim.
Yeah, of course. So just out of curiosity, I think we've talked about some of the things that are the bad things that happen, like the IRS changing the business, the research and development credits, and then the pandemic hitting. But look, business is always evolving, right? Things are always changing. So how do you stay adaptable?
What you really need to do is you've got to be flexible. You just roll with the punches, and you can't get hung up on any one thing. And for software, we're not even going to use R&D credits in it because they move those 15 years. So we're just going to have to figure something else out. But at the end of the day, it's just things are going to pop up that you have no control over. And you can either sit there and just hemorrhage, or you're going to have to make a move. And maybe it's not the right move, but if you're not doing anything, you're going to sit and you're going to be out of business. So,
right.
So you've got to take some kind of action and use your best senses, talk to your people. I guess that is kind of what we have, a great core group that's been with us, and they're like family. We've had guys with us since 2007 that are our senior engineers, and that we'll go head to head with anybody with, and we're going to make sure we're going to take care of them come hell or high water. And that's something that is part of what's going to keep you afloat in the tough times too, is you got to have some loyal people, but it's like you got to put some deposits in the bank before you can take withdrawals. That's kind of the thing. So we've built a good team so that we could muster, and our team is all the same way, open-minded. So when they'll learn a new we can pick up a new technology within 2 or 3 days that we've never seen before. And that's how we've survived. And, what we're trying to move into is more of a proactive. We have done very little marketing at all. And we're going to start doing some more of that and try to solicit for our higher margin businesses versus kind of where we've just sat back and things kind of come to us, and people know that we'll do the dirty stuff and the stuff no one else wants. And sometimes it's profitable, sometimes it's not so profitable, but it keeps paying the bills. So that's kind of how we've survived, is we've just kept an open mind, and we can immediately transition, very, very agile. The whole company has got the same mindset, and we train our young people to be the same way.
Awesome. Yeah, that's a great word. Agile. So you mentioned adaptable. You talked a little bit about some of the early things you struggled with and had to change through and scale quickly. And then you also mentioned some of the current challenges. So just curious, would you give us a glimpse into the future plans and goals that you have for the companies that you own?
Sure. Yeah, and I'll start with Rockwerk Corp, since that's the one I'm most involved with. One of the things we've really gotten into is AI and AR. It's amazing what that technology can do. We're kind of starting to dabble into it for marketing resources and making videos for training and things like that. But we ultimately would want to be able to integrate our software products with it. So as we kind of learn more and it evolves, we're hoping eventually, instead of printing out a Pareto report telling you your top 5 scrap reasons, maybe we can add some AI and actually give you some legitimate tasks and things that you should do to fix the problem, take it another step. And then AR, we have some customers where they want to be able to use AR for putting over operators for training and making sure that they're welding the correct paths and things like that. So it's augmented reality is kind of a neat thing that there's some potential I can see on manufacturing floors. But really what we're focusing on our track and trace systems right now, and what we call our easy bus systems. Those communicate with devices that are in mostly automobile or vehicles, but in other devices as well, with the electronic. Everything used to be electronic to where you're using AC DC to connect to it. Now it's all on a network, most of these vehicles. And so the actual devices that are on the vehicle, if you need to test it before you install it, make sure it's working, you got to be able to communicate on that type of network. And then you also need to communicate with the machines that are making that product so that you can say, okay, this is a good part, this is a bad part, pull the information off, flash it. Things like blind spot indicators in the rear lamp of a vehicle would be an example. It's a little device, and we've got to connect to it and make sure that it's functioning properly. And if it's not, then they have to replace it and rerun the lamp. So that's a product that's just something that fits with both of our companies, Rockwerk and Team Ray. So does track and trace, because they both require track and trace. Basically means that we're shutting equipment down when we're running parts, if it hasn't met all the prerequisites before it gets to a certain station, it won't allow it to go through. So we restore that in a database, and we've got a very efficient way to do that. And it's better than the competitors, and we're going to start trying to get the word out on that. So those are the main things we're going to be focusing on for Rockwerk Corp. Team Ray is really growing with the machine building portion. We're starting to take on stations and things where before COVID, and that what happened during COVID was we had to make mechanical devices for these, which were kind of like little kiosks with a wrist reader. So that's where we started. We had to start building things, and then that's where we needed a shop. So we gutted some of our office space and turned it into a shop. And then we had an intern who started, when did he start? 2019, 2018, who wanted to be into mechanical engineering. And Chris and I both have a background in that. And we were able to kind of get him off the ground with some books, and he just took it from there. He can destroy both of us now. So we have a great mechanical design engineer, and we also have a great mechanical, one of our guys Chris and I are friends with is a phenomenal mechanic. It's just one of those guys that can do whatever the heck you want. So we're able to kind of start with those, we called it IntelliScreen units, and now that's evolved Team Ray into a machine builder. So instead of just getting paid for the PLC program and the human machine interface program and the robotic, all the soft stuff. And the problem doing that is you were held hostage by whoever did the mechanical stuff. If that wasn't done right, the PLC programming doesn't matter. I mean, you're fighting a problem forever. You can program around some of the stuff, but it's never 100%. So now they've got full control, and they can optimize it from the mechanical. Once you make a good mechanical design, the programming is really easy. So that's kind of where was the mindset with that. But that business taken off for Team Ray, and they're getting bigger projects. Our revenues are going way higher now that we're getting into the materials. And Bubba Rock's, we've recently partnered up with Ball Rich Chips. I don't know if you've heard of them out at Tiffin.
Yeah.
So they have our chips with Bubba Rock seasonings. We have a seasoning line that's up to 30 different seasonings now, pretty extravagant. But that business is really just growing hand over fist year over year, at least probably 10-15% in revenue this year. So looking to hopefully get into some bigger stores like Walmart and things like that going forward. But getting some more corporate type work where we're providing meals. A lot of people trying to retain their people are using us to, provide like a meal or whatever for employee appreciation and things, which is kind of nice.
Yeah.
Seeing that. So yeah, and Bubba's doing, he runs that and does a really good job with it. We don't have to worry too much about it. He takes care of it.
Nice. That's excellent.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Ryan, I really want to thank you for joining us today. Really appreciate all the time. Congratulations on all your success. It sounds like all your businesses are doing well. You've been recognized in your region for excellence, and that's great. Sounds like you've been taking really good care of your employees. But yeah, it's been great learning more about your entrepreneurial journey. So thanks for joining us. And to everyone watching, I look forward to seeing you in our next episode.
Thank you, Todd. It was a pleasure talking with you, and hope to speak to you in the future down the road sometime.
Will do. Thanks, Ryan.
All right, thanks.